Welcome to the Expat Edge with Marcus and Matt, where we answer your questions about becoming an expat to help you thrive abroad.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Expat Edge. Today we're going to talk about the difference between expats and digital nomads. I know sometimes, Marcus, you and I, we talk about this topic a lot, even just personally between us, and I find that we kind of use the term expat and digital nomad quite interchangeably in a lot of situations. Whereas I think there's kind of a difference between the two. We didn't really plan this video, so I kind of wanted to talk about, what is the difference between a digital nomad and an expat? And let's see, kind of what we both think about the topic. For me personally, it really depends not necessarily on where you live and for how long. Obviously, digital nomads are kind of popularized by the fact that they don't live anywhere. They just travel around infinitely forever. But for me, it's much more about, if you've got a local job somewhere or you own a business that's focused on the country where you live, then that makes someone more of an expat rather than a digital nomad, even if it kind of starts out as a digital nomad. Lots of people move to a country, they're working remotely, whatever, but then they get established and find a local job. And for me, that's kind of where the difference kind of happens. But what about you? What are your thoughts on the topic?
I hadn't thought about it with, as the top priority being like, do you have a local job or remote job? I thought a digital nomad mostly was the goal of a digital nomad was to be able to travel as they work and to different places. Hence the word nomad in there. So my mind was kind of focused on, okay, well, a digital nomad is probably hopping around, within a year, maybe he's going to several different countries, whereas an expat is kind of, has his 3 to 5 year contract or whatever. And that goes along with what you're saying is if you're working locally, obviously you would have to be there locally as well. So, I think the main goal for a digital nomad is to cut the ties and not be location independent and not need to stay in a particular place.
Right. Well, I find it kind of strange, as we look through these digital nomad groups, as we broaden, our content, it's strange because obviously there's lots of people in there who are clearly moving around all the time. Somebody's touring Southeast Asia in a different country, every week for a year on end. But then it also seems that there are some people that consider themselves digital nomads who are really more like expats. Maybe they just have a remote job, if that makes sense. They've been in Spain for a number of years and they like it in Spain, but it's really interesting because when people use this term digital nomad, you're basically saying that you don't have a home. And usually if you're an expat, you either have a contract or you kind of have in your mind how long you're going to stay. Maybe, you have the idea to stay for a long time. But these digital nomads, it's so strange, when they come for guidance, right? You start asking them like, okay, can you open a business, in your home country? They're like, no, I don't have an address. Okay, what about in, the country where you are now, where you've been for 2 years? Well, no, I don't have a residence permit. I don't have an address here either. And it's like, it's so strange. Because really their situation to me is more like an expat, but they're living, with no ties anywhere. It's it's just interesting, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just the main goal and the main, reason they would be called digital nomads would be because they have the freedom to go to different countries wherever they want, anytime. And they can bring their work with them and set up shop. A freelancer or a remote worker, I would pool them into the same digital nomad because they have the ability to go wherever. But then a remote worker might just be, actually, you could be in the same country and across the country, right? And work for your company. I don't know if your company is based in California, you could be in, I don't know, maybe Midwest or something, where it's cheaper to live. So, but a digital nomad, I think, would mostly focus on the travel and the freedom to go wherever.
Yeah. I mean, have you come across many people who start as an expat or digital nomad and then kind of, randomly end up the other?
Well, I think maybe some digital nomads will start out thinking they will kind of hop around more than they actually do because they just, I don't know. I mean, there's a factor of like calling something home or thinking of a place where you can return to.
Right.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to to do a poll or something and see among expats and digital nomads what they think, like after, I don't know, a few years of travel, what would they think? Do they want to settle down somewhere? I've read, in the digital nomad groups and online, some of the comments are, after 2, 3, 4 years, they're just like, well, I kind of want to settle down to some kind of place, but I don't know where, and they can't make a decision. And so,
right.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a phase that people want to travel, take their work with them, and then after a few years, they kind of want to choose a place to settle down and call home, even though maybe they're just traveling less, so they would be, I don't know, 6 months out of the year, they'd be in one place, and then the rest they'd travel or something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting topic. And obviously with the advent of remote work after COVID, it's obviously opens up new opportunities for many people. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm actually interested to see if there will be a kind of change from lots of the countries that used to hire expats. I wonder if they'll start hiring, digital nomads or people who are working remotely, but, in jobs in other countries. So for example, I mean, maybe a German company would hire an American who, before COVID, they might have had come and work in the German offices, but now, they would just hire them and let them be wherever. That would be an interesting kind of trend to follow.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I think, but when you think about digital nomads, the type of work that they have is probably not necessarily, well, I don't know. There's probably a lot of overlap with remote work.
Right.
But wouldn't you say that the digital nomad lifestyle is probably closer to a freelancer versus a remote worker who kind of settles down in one place?
I've been thinking about that actually quite a bit. I'm not really sure. I mean, my brother, I guess he probably considers himself a digital nomad, but he's not technically a freelancer. He has, a job with a US company, but I don't know. It's an interesting angle for sure. Think about.
Well, there's also lots of discussions on that topic. Will my employer let me work remotely? Can I become a digital nomad while still working for my employer? And some, when you look at, I mean, you have more experience with the job postings and things with Expatriate, but did you see maybe a trend of like US companies tell remote workers you can be a remote worker, but you have to stay in the US, or you have to be on the same time zone or something like that?
We should do a separate video on this, because actually that's a pretty deep topic that a lot of people don't understand. And I'm certainly no expert, but I know, I would guess more about employment law in multiple countries than most people. But let's talk about that in a separate video, because I think it's definitely an interesting topic and something that people come to us and ask us for advice on. So,
well, please share your thoughts on what is a digital nomad. Is it much different than an expat, or is there a lot of overlap? And where do freelancers and remote workers fit in that picture? Leave your comments below, and we'll see you in another video.
This was the Expat Edge with Matt and Marcus. We hope you enjoyed the video. Visit theexpatedge.com for even more content that will help you thrive abroad. You can submit your ideas for video topics and sign up for free at theexpatedge.com. See you there.